What's coming up is free. There's a whole world of even better stuff for our Patreon supporters. Go to patreon.com/wordinyourear to see how you can join them.
Well, welcome to another edition of Word in Your Ear, and an astonishing story, the book Soul Survivor, that kicks off when the author is hired as an Ikette on the Ike Tina Turner Revue at the age of 17, and it never really touches back down again. There's an amazing central section where it looks at swinging London in the mid-60s through an American's eye. It's a fantastic story, and it's by P.P. Arnold. Very nice to see you. Welcome aboard.
Hello.
Pat, as we should call you.
Yeah, and what am I calling you again? Mark.
Well, we're Mark and Dave. That's right. Mark and David.
So Dave is the one, the serious one.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's right. That's my role.
Oh, yeah.
That's my role.
Well figured out. Yeah. So, Pat, how long have you been living here in Spain? I think. How long have you been living in Spain?
I've been living here for 22 years. I actually came here in 1999. Yeah, I was just starting working with Roger Waters, and Yeah, I came here. I first came here in 1994 to visit some people, and while I was here, I wrote a song about Celebrania, and the song kind of brought me back. You know, people heard I had written this song, and they wanted me to come and see how it could be released, you know, and everything. So I had just got the gig with Roger, and I thought, oh, well, I'd come back and just kind of, it's always great.
Very nice.
In the song I said, Celebrania would always be with me.
Yeah.
Came back, and the song sort of,
fantastic.
Manifested.
Well, look, the book starts in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, with this extraordinary story, and you've been in various gospel choirs and all sorts of interesting things beforehand, but the extraordinary story at the age of 17, as I mentioned, that you're rung up by the Ike Tina Revue to be auditioned. So how did they hear of you? Tell us that story.
Not by the Revue. I was born in L.A., in Watts, and I grew up born into a family of gospel singers. So I grew up singing all my life in church and just singing with all my siblings and my family, and never even dreamed of doing it professionally, and really hadn't got to that part anyway, because I was at the age of 17, I was in an abusive teen domestic marriage. I had 2 children. So, the idea of being in show business was like the last thing on my mind.
But how had the Revue heard of you then? How did they know about you?
I'm getting to that. You have to let me get to it.
Yeah.
All right. So that Sunday morning, I was doing my domestics, because as well as having 2 children, I worked 2 jobs, and I did everything on Sunday, on my cleaning. So I said a prayer, and I asked God to show me a way out of the situation that I was in. And, go back in the house, doing my cleaning, and I get a call from Maxine Smith, who was an ex-girlfriend of my brother's. And Maxine and Gloria Scott, who's also a soul singer who you might have heard of, because Barry White recorded her after her Ikette days and everything. They called me out of desperation, because Maxine knew that I sang, and the girl that was supposed to go with them to this Ike Tina audition, because Gloria Scott, Ike Turner had 2 sets of Ikettes. So one set went on the road with them, and another set did the Dick Clark show. And Gloria was one of those girls in the Dick Clark show. So she knew that the other girls were leaving. She wanted that gig. She was going to get the gig with Maxine, and the other girl let them down. So they called me out of desperation. I say, I can't go. My husband's not going to let me go anywhere. They go tell him anything. Bam, they hung up the phone. And then an hour later, they were on my doorstep And an hour after that, I found myself in Ike Tina's living room singing, dancing in the streets. So I lied and told my husband I was going shopping. And I went to this audition to help them out, And so Ike Tina knew nothing about me. They didn't, they hadn't called me. I just happened to be with them. They liked us. We were more of like the go-go girls, This is before all the sexy X-rated girls, We were the little group with the go-go boots and that kind of a look, which was all the rage in that time.
So you had to learn a huge amount of choreography and a huge amount of songs in a very short time.
Show in 3 days.
Incredible.
So anyway, we do the audition. Tina goes, right, girls, you got the gig. And I say, I can't go. I'm only here to help them. I'm in big trouble. My husband's I'm going to get beat when I get home. I should have been home two hours ago. So Tina, says, well, if you're going to get beat for nothing, why don't you ride with us and at least see the show? Which was like, there I was with, this goddess woman, this beautiful woman who I really admired. I was under her spell, and I knew I was going to get in trouble when I went home. So, and I never got a chance to do anything because I hadn't even had an opportunity to be a proper teenager or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just sort of became the delinquent wife who went to Fresno, 300 miles out of LA, to see the Ike Tina Turner Revue. So I get back home, 6 o'clock the next morning. I had left home at noon, and my husband's waiting for me. Bam! He hits me straight away when I walk in the door. And it was like he knocked some sense into me, really, because I remembered my dream. I remembered my prayer. And I realized that God had answered my prayer. That morning, I didn't have a way out of my situation. And then Tina Turner, later, I met Tina Turner, and she was the one who rescued me. Not only did she change my life completely, she rescued me from a situation that she wasn't able to get away from.
It sounded incredibly exciting, the whole thing, but a real tough old life, isn't it? $250 a week, she had paid all your expenses. And then you were fined, I think you were fined once $50 for crying on stage.
Oh, yeah.
You were fined for bump notes.
You got fined for anything back then. That was the way the band leaders kept their bands together. Ike Turner, James Brown, Otis Redding, all those guys, that's how they controlled you. And so control the band, because everything was like, you were either, back then, you were either on it or you weren't in it.
Yeah.
Like there were things like, like you go to a rehearsal today and people, sometimes I have kids that come to my rehearsals and they're on their phones. There would have been none of that.
No, absolutely.
There would have been none of that. We got fined. I got fined if I had a run in my stocking.
Right.
You got fined. So I got fined for crying on stage after witnessing a horrific Ike Turner coming off stage and just beating the shit out of Tina instantly. And it just shook us up. We were getting ready to go on stage, and, all the girls, the Ikettes and Tina, always before the show, we're getting dressed, we're getting made up, we're laughing, we're doing our thing, and then suddenly something like that happens. For me, it was a very emotional experience.
Yeah, understandable.
Anyway, because I thought in the beginning that he was this woman who had everything, Ike Tina, perfect life, perfect couple. And it was only after I joined the Revue and I was on the road with them that I had to witness her being treated like that. And for me, I was still quite damaged, very shy, very emotional. So, that was really difficult being with them. But the great thing was like being on stage every night. You know, the bandstand was always on fire, you know, because Tina was just like absolutely incredible. Ike was as well. It's an amazing band. The Ikette, you go on the road for like 90 days. You're working 87 days out of those 90 days. You know, there was no rest. It was the middle of civil rights. So we weren't always able to live in hotels, just any hotel. The only hotel that we could live in was a Holiday Inn. And as you can imagine, off of, only getting paid $250 a week, a lot of times we slept on the bus. And it wasn't like the tour buses that you have today. It's like old raggedy Greyhound buses.
Yeah.
Everybody had 3 seats where you can, sleep if need be. And it was like that. It was difficult. For me, it was really difficult because even though my family are from the South, my family are from East Texas, my siblings and I were born in LA.
Yeah.
So I never had that, one-on-one relationship with racism like most people did. All the rest of the people in the band, most of the people in the band are from the South. I heard about those horrific stories through my parents and family moving from Texas to LA. I would hear about these things. And so I learned about all of that firsthand by traveling the South in the middle of the whole civil rights.
Well, it's an incredible contrast to the whole period in the mid-60s when the Ike Tina Revue support the Rolling Stones on their British tour, which is just amazing. And you said you'd never seen excitement like it since you'd seen Elvis. So describe that reaction to the Rolling Stones.
I never saw Elvis live or anything. I never saw
you were talking about that. People were as excited.
Excitement and stuff that those kind of artists, rock and roll artists created, because you have to understand that the whole rock and roll scene and the whole R&B scene was a totally different scene. So like we worked the Chiltin Circuit, that were like these like a whole string of black clubs and ballrooms, and sometimes we play in barns, and things like that. When we got to the East Coast, we would do the East Coast theaters, like the Apollo Theater and Uptown Theater in Philly and all those East Coast theaters. But to come off the Chiltin Circuit and the first gig in the UK to be the Albert Hall.
Incredible.
That was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your impressions that this is swinging London that you arrive in? What are your impressions of London at that time?
It was like, for me, it was incredible because I had, in the nearly 2 years that I'd been with Ike Tina, I had managed to leave my husband. So I was like kind of free, I was dealing with Ike Turner, the fear of being around him and dealing with him because he wanted me to be a part of his concubine and I wasn't having that. So I had been, after I left my husband, I was like hanging out with the trumpet player, Gabriel Fleming. Great guy from the 100. He afterwards played in the 103rd Street Watts Band, all those great horn players from New Orleans and like that. So Gabriel was kind of like protecting me from Ike. But I caught Gabriel with another woman in New York the night before we flew into London. So I quit him. So when I arrived in London, I was free. For the first time, I'm like a teenager. I'm 18 years old. We arrive in swinging London. I mean, it was just like swinging in full force. Everything was just absolutely amazing. It was like it was integrated, more integrated.
Yeah.
So we were amazed at just the whole scene that English people were really into the music, all the great clubs and everything that we would go to, all the fashion, all the everything, you know, art, everything in London. So it was like so exciting, you know. And
there's an amazing description of you, because you spend a lot of time with the Stones and their entourage, and there's an amazing description of going out to I think it's a fish restaurant in Chelsea, and talking about seeing how everybody's got 3 or 4 sets of cutlery, and you're this girl from Watts in Los Angeles, and you're looking at this kind of very posh world of Marianne Faithfull and all these other aristocratic types, and you say you feel very unsophisticated. It's really interesting. So what did you make of that kind of that bohemian world?
Well, it was just a totally different world for me, you know, because you got to understand that I grew up in a total segregated environment. I didn't hang out with white folks, right, in America. And then suddenly I'm in England, and it's a different culture.
Yeah.
And so I didn't finish high school. I wasn't educated in that kind of way. I was intelligent, but I didn't have my degrees, and I hadn't been to university. And there I was hanging out with Mick Jagger and Marianne, and they're like surrounded by all the young aristocracy, you know, like, and so like you have this whole other level of life that you know I had no experience of. So like for me to go out for a fish dinner, you know, we're talking Louisiana catfish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, like we go, and it's a different thing. You know, I had never sat down to a table that had 900 knives and forks.
Yeah.
And everything. So what I would do was just kind of try to follow the lead, you know, what everybody was doing. So I ordered what Mick ordered. You know, he ordered the Dover sole. So I just ordered it. I had never had Dover sole and had certainly never eaten fish in that manner, where you have to pick the meat off the bones, very sort of like properly. And everything, so I just wrecked my.
Well, you have a love affair, which you write about with Mick, and he comes out of it really well. Actually, you know, just lots of dinners and lunches at the flat and walks in the park and everything. But there's a bit where you travel in the limo after a gig, I think up to Scotland with Mick, and just the limo is being mobbed by fans everywhere you go. Did you find that? Did you think at any point that's a level of celebrity that I just don't want, or did that seem something?
No, I didn't think of it like that. I was scared, to be honest, you know, because we had, I hadn't really, Mick and I became friends. Mick used to make me laugh, right? You know, because, you know, he wanted to walk like a black man, talk like a black man, you know, sing. He was like, he wanted to know all the, you know, the Stones would have like the artists that they admired with them. They were the first. I think the Beatles too, but the Stones actually had their artists on those tours so that they not only could like connect with the music that they love, that they could connect with the culture of the people that created that movie. So that music. So they would sort of laugh at us, you know, because of all of our sayings, and, you know, a lot of people from the South and the country, and, you know, Mick loves all of that, you know. So he would come to our dressing rooms and just sort of like barge in the dressing rooms. He wanted to learn the dance steps, you know. So we would be like teaching him how to do the pony and the mashed potatoes and all of that, you know. And so we became friends. And so after the shows back then, you know, we traveled differently than them. You know, we traveled in the bus and everything. They were traveling in, you know, Daimler limos and stuff like that. But after the gigs, Mick would like invite, because Bill was kind of had his eye on Rose, and after the shows, whatever cities we were in, they would go to discotheques afterwards. So we would go to the discotheque. Anyway, we were hanging out. And it was only the first time that I actually sort of became intimate with Mick was on this, the show in Glasgow that you speak of. Well, Mick and Bill had invited Rose and I to go to Newcastle with them, to travel with them. So we were, before they did their runner, we were in the limo waiting for them to come, and then suddenly the Stones come out and they're running, everybody's in the car and they're trying to get them from the fans are rocking. I mean, the car was just, it was frightening. I say in the book, I think not only was it frightening for me, I think it was frightening for them as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes those kind of that pandemonium that they created was frightening. Yeah. So we're on our way to Newcastle. Okay. First of all, we get past all the whole getting away from the theater, and we're driving, and on the way to Newcastle, we go through Gretna Green, right? And so I didn't know anything about Gretna Green or anything, and this is a place where people elope and get married and everything. And somebody, they just started talking about how, yeah, it's okay that you can hang out with a black girls, but you can't really take them home to meet your mother, right? And stuff like that. Well, for me, they were taking the piss, but I didn't know what taking the piss was. This is the first time I've been in a limo, with a car full of white guys. So my brain goes back to South, in America, this would not have happened, unless somebody is like getting ready to take you somewhere in the woods and rape you or something, So I get like really uptight. Yeah. I get into my protect mode. The way I dealt with, say, like, in as growing up, and not only the abuse from my husband, but, we got beat when we were kids. That's the way your father kind of kept you in line. He had 6 kids,
There's an incident around there where obviously you're signed up by Andrew Oldham to join his Immediate label and being teed up to be the first lady of Immediate. So did they have a clear idea of the kind of music that they wanted you to play and how they were going to promote you?
I think Andrew had I think Andrew was he had an idea. The reason that they wanted a girl like me on his label was because he was really into the American West Coast kind of sound, and Phil Spector and the whole kind of team kind of vibe. And so I think I must have been the personification of that for them. Yeah. And plus I was very shy. Even though I was having a great time, it was like I would get like in that car, I was like frightened, so I go into my vibe, I curse them all out, like, hey, I curse them all out. Rolling Stones, look, I don't, fingers up to the Rolling Stones, you know what I mean? I don't know who you are, But anyway, I realized afterwards, I just got, what do you call it? When it, there I go, talking too fast. Anyway, we get to the hotel. Mick comes in, and I was really annoyed at Mick because I thought he's my friend, and they're all laughing. The more I cursed them out, the more they laughed, So I just thought. Then he came and he explained about, but they were just taking the piss. It was just da 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 da.
What about the small faces? You obviously had that wonderful clip that we can all see on YouTube of you doing Tin Soldier with them, which is just marvelous. But you must have looked at them and thought, this is a quaintly English group. You know, their humour and their clothes and their accents and their songs about suburbia. How did you react to them? What were they like?
Kind of different. They were different and they were really English, but they were more like kind of ghetto than the Rolling Stones. You know, they were surrounded by all the aristocracy and everything. Yeah. Whereas I give the small faces were like my brothers. You know what I mean? I have brothers who sing, and we were kind of the same age. You know, the same height, you know, the way they dressed, the mods, they were very similar to what we called Ivy League in America. So I kind of had like a instant affinity with them, you know, with the small faces. And we were like, we were the babies. So, that was great. You know, they reminded me of like, Watts, really? I guess. Kind of like Watts, you know.
So do you regard yourself now? Are you an American citizen or British, or you're living in Spain, or
out of the universe?
Right.
That's what I am. You know, I've lived in Spain longer than I've lived anywhere. I've lived in Spain for 22 years. I lived in America from up until the time I was 18. You know, I went back for that short period to make a record. And during that time when I lost my daughter going back there, and I found it very difficult to like come back to England without my daughter. So I was there longer. But, you know, I grew up the majority of my adult life. I grew up in the UK. So, like, even though I'm more British probably than I am American, and so like, and in Spain, I'm just myself. You know, I just take myself wherever I go, and I tend to be able to integrate. I have that ability to. I came to Spain. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. I came on my own. I feel that there's some kind of ancestral pull for me being here, you know, because the Spanish and the Portuguese, you know, I think some of my ancestors from here picked my ancestors from the west coast of Africa. And, you know, like I said, my family are from East Texas. So, and East Texas was controlled by the Spanish. Right. You know, my grandmother's name is Estela. My grandfather, his name is Theodora, and these names are all derivative of Spanish names.
Right.
You know.
We've only touched on, you know, a certain part of what's in this book, because you cover your family history and obviously all the many things that you've done since the stuff we talked about with the Stones and the Small Faces and so forth. I mean, how do you look? Is it possible to sum up how you look back on it? Is it happy memories or bitter memories or what?
Well, if you read my book, you'll see that it's like it's life. You know, my life. I've been through hard times. It's been up. It's been down. It's been tragic. You know, it's been, you know, even though all those fun times in the 60s, everybody realizes the fun times, they were difficult times as well, because I knew nothing about the music industry. I knew nothing about business. So like myself and the Small Faces and probably everybody, Stones, the Beatles, everybody got ripped off in the 60s. So, you know, people like they asked me about First Cut Is the Deepest, and a lot of people think Rod Stewart did it, especially a lot of Americans. They don't even, they're only now finding out that I am the original artist, you know. And I always say, well, you know, like Rod and Sheryl Crow. I'd say a thing on stage. I always say, like, hey, I recorded it 10 years before Rod, and Sheryl Crow wasn't even born. So it's like, that was difficult. When Immediate folded, it was all fun and games at Immediate, and then when Immediate folded, that's when the serious, learning took over. It meant that I had to now learn how to protect myself. Whereas before, I felt that, I was trusting. I trusted in Andrew and Tony and Mick and everybody that they would look after me, that I'd be protected. But then it was after Immediate folded, I started learning about the music busyness.
Yes. Well, we traditionally end every day with the greatest record of all time. Can you tell us the greatest record ever made?
Wow.
To learn.
Oh, there's just so many, oh my God. Oh God, I should have, I know you asked me that question. I should have thought about that.
I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, because there's just so many.
What's your personal favorite?
I love them. I love a lot, because I'm into gospel music. Gospel. I'm here thinking, as you ask me these questions, Ray Charles and Sam Cooke and Otis Redding and everybody is flooding through my brain. Aretha, of course, is top of the list, and Mavis Staples. So, like, how do I say which one of those is?
Just take a wild stab.
It's funny you should say about Mavis Staples. She was only in London the other day playing and you're talking about First Cut is the Deepest, of course, written by Cat Stevens, who was at Glastonbury only the other week.
I know. I saw that.
So it's amazing to think, all those years later, that stuff and those people are still in the public eye.
That's right. And so, like, speaking of Cat Stevens and First Cut is the Deepest, I would definitely say that that's one of the greatest songs ever written as well.
It is. It's a great record. It's a fantastic record.
And your version of it is wonderful.
What a blessing for it to be a part of
absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
We should plug this again, shouldn't we, Dave? It's a very good book.
Yes,
Soul Survivor, P.P. Arnold, and
Soul Survivor. Now, I know you're running out of time over there. I can see your clock is running. Okay. But, we got the paperback is being released on the 29th. Right. I'm sure you know. And it's being released with an EP of music as well. I have a track called The Soul Survivor that's been produced by the Metrophonic team who produced the Christmas number one that I had, the first number one I've ever had, the Christmas retro. It Won't Be Christmas Without You. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
And, I've got like box sets coming out of like box sets of things that have never been released, productions that I did with Chaz Jankel, Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkey, the stuff that we did, that's all going to be on there. There's lots of songs that I've produced independently that were never released that are going to be on there. There's just so much stuff on. That's going to be on Demon Records. There's an immediate kind of set coming out too. They've discovered a lot of recordings, productions that were produced by Mick Jagger. Some of the early stuff that I did with Mick that I had forgot about.
Brilliant.
Those things. That's coming out. I did the New Adventures album, which was my last album that was produced by Steve Craddock with contributions from Paul Weller and the Specials and everybody, a lot of great people. I toured that album in 2019 and we did a live version in Liverpool. So the live in Liverpool album is coming out. That's coming out probably before the box set, after the Soul Survivor thing is happening. So there's going to be these, and the new album, which I'm recording, a brand new album that's going to be released next spring. So
fantastic.
It's all happening.
It is all happening. That's brilliant. At the age of 29, my career is starting all over.
It
is starting all over. Brilliant. Oh, it's lovely to talk to you.